There are three main objectives for today's SPSA modification training. Number one, we want you to learn how to create two different kinds of SPSA modifications. One with no budget changes and one with budget changes. Now, this part of the presentation is primarily targeted for our schools that will be creating the modification, but it's still beneficial for our regional reviewers and support staff to understand the components of the SPSA modification platform and how it works in order to best support the schools with completing an online modification and getting it approved. The second objective is for schools and regional reviewers to understand how the modification approval process works from submission all the way to approval. And then lastly, we're going to review with you some resources in the appendix that will be helpful to both our schools and regional reviewers in supporting this pilot modification process throughout the year. First, we'll go over how to create a modification with no budget change. In other words, a modification where the school might only be revising content in your plan. Once you log into the online SPSA, scroll down to the Modifications tab. On the Modification dashboard, you will click on Create New Modification. You will first select No Budget as the type of modification, and then click Save. First, you'll fill in the needs assessment box by explaining the data-driven need behind completing this modification. So for example, maybe your mid-year data shows that a large number of students are not making adequate progress on iReady assessments, and you've determined that a new strategy for reteaching ELA or math is necessary. You would provide that information in this text box. Now, the next part of the modification is the measurable objectives section. Your modification may involve a revision to an existing measurable objective that was developed in the original SPSA, or the creation of a new measurable objective. It is important to note that schools are not required to add or modify existing measurable objectives. A school can skip this section and go directly to the school strategy with actions section to add new or modify existing strategies and actions. However, if a school does need to modify or create a new measurable objective, the deadline to do that is October 31st. Now, the process for modifying your measurable objectives is the same for both implementation and improvement objectives. So we're going to illustrate that process using implementation objectives. First, click on the Modify Measurable Objectives button. Again, you would select whether it's implementation or improvement, but we're just illustrating the implementation example today. Then you would select the measurable objectives that you want to modify and click on the Start Editing button. The item status column will display modified. In the blank text box beneath the original objective, you're going to enter the modified objective. If you elected to modify your objective but left that field blank, it will trigger an error when you save the modification as a draft or attempt to submit the modification. But just know that you can still save a modification as a draft even if there is an error. Now, if instead of modifying an existing objective, you're trying to create a new objective, click on Add New and select whether it's a new implementation or improvement objective. Then you would select the pillar that you want to add the new objective to and click the Select button. This time, the item status column will display New to indicate that this is a new objective. And then you will type into the text box the new objective and save the modification as a draft. Now, if you decide that you no longer need to modify an existing measurable objective that you selected or a new one that you created, you can delete the new or existing objective by clicking on the trash can. The platform will ask you to verify that you want to delete the objective. And deleting an existing measurable objective does not permanently delete it. It can be reselected again for modification. However, if it is a brand new objective, it will be permanently deleted if you click on the trash can. Now, in this section, we'll illustrate how to create a new district priority, district strategies, and school strategy and actions. To add a new one, click on the Add District Priority / Strategies and School Strategy Action button. Then select the pillar page and click on the Select button. To add a new district priority and strategy or remove an existing one, click on the Add, Remove District Priority and Strategies button that you see highlighted here on this slide. Then select the district priority and click on the Apply button. And in this example, we're illustrating selecting priority 1A and 1B as our district priorities. Once you've clicked on the Apply button, a pop-up of district strategies aligned to the district priorities you selected will appear. Select all the applicable district strategies and then click on the Start Editing button. And in this example, we illustrate selecting district strategies 1AS1 and 1BS1. It's important that you remember which buttons to click on in order to select your strategy, your priorities and strategies correctly. So again, after selecting your district priorities, click Apply, but after selecting your district strategies, click Start Editing. If you click Apply again, it will undo your district strategy selections. Once you've clicked on Start Editing, your modified district priorities and district strategies will be displayed as you see here. The school strategy with actions status will display new, indicating that this is a new school strategy with actions. First, you're going to type the applicable school strategy in the modified school strategy text box. Then you will type the applicable school actions in the modified school actions text box. And again, if any fields are left blank, you will get an error message when you attempt to save or submit the modification. Now, the new strategy with actions will appear in sequential numbering. So in this example, the school already had 2 strategies with actions in the original SPSA ELA pillar. So this new modified strategy with actions will be number 3. The next one after that would be strategy with actions 4, and so on. The strategies and actions are in a block design, meaning that when you create a new school strategy with actions or modify an existing one, it will display the entire block that includes the district priority, the district strategies, the school strategy, and school actions. Additionally, we'll show you later in the presentation, the block design also includes the budget section for positions and non-position items. Now, throughout this process, we recommend that after each step that I've just gone over, that you save frequently to avoid any data being lost. Now I'm going to illustrate how to modify existing district priorities and strategies and new school strategies and actions. And by existing, we mean that these are coming from your original SPSA plan that you developed and got approved. So in this time, instead of clicking on Add, you're going to click on Modify District Priority Strategies and School Strategy Action because you're modifying an existing one in your plan. Then you'll select the applicable school strategy with actions to be modified and click on Start Editing. In our example here, we selected Academic Excellence ELA School Strategy with Actions 2, so it will be displayed as you see here. To add a new district priority and strategy or remove an existing one, The process is exactly the same. You click on the Add Remove District Priority and Strategies button. Then you select the district priority and click the Apply button. Now, you can select new priorities, but you can also reselect priorities that you had in the original plan as well. In our example here, we illustrate selecting new 1B and 1D district priorities, but we're also reselecting 1A again, and all three will display in the modified district priority selections. After clicking on the Apply button, you'll get the pop-up for the district strategies aligned to those priorities that you just selected. Select all the applicable district strategies and then click on the Start Editing button. And in our example here, we selected 1AS1, 1BS2, and although you can't see it on the screen, also 1DS2. Once you click on Start Editing, the modified district priorities and district strategies will appear beneath the original district priorities and strategies that were developed in your SPSA. The way you can distinguish the originals from the modified ones is through that word modified. Now, the status will also show modified to indicate that we're modifying an existing strategy with actions. And beneath the original school strategy with actions, which will be grayed out, you will type in the applicable school strategy in the modified school strategy text box. And then you will type in the modified school actions in the modified school actions text box. Now, once again, if any fields are left blank, it will trigger an error message when you try to save or submit. And then, as always, save frequently after each step to avoid losing your data. Next, I'll go over how to delete a district priority and strategies and school strategy actions. If you selected to either create a new entry or one that you want to modify, but later decide that you no longer need the new or modified strategy with actions block, you can delete it by clicking on the trash can and then clicking OK to verify that you want to delete it. Again, we want to note that deleting an existing strategy with actions block doesn't permanently delete it. It can be reselected again for modification. However, if it's a brand new strategy, it will be permanently deleted. So only the modified ones can be reselected again, but brand new strategies and actions will be permanently deleted. Now, as a reminder, since it is a block design, deleting a block deletes the district priority, district strategy, school actions, as well as any budget entries that are part of that block. Now I'll go over the process for approving modifications that have no budget change. Only the principal or assistant principal can enter the SSC approval date, the EdCode certification, and the administrator e-signature, which are all required. A school Title I designee will not be able to complete those fields. Likewise, only the principal or the AP can select the Submit Final Modification button to submit it to the regional reviewers for approval. The regional reviewers will receive an email notification that the modification is ready for review and approval. Now, if the school is not ready to submit the modification for review, it can click on the Save Modification as a Draft button to continue working on the modification. That Save button is enabled for both the school administrator and the Title I designee. So Title I designees are able to do the work and save it. You're just not able to complete the certification and submit the final modification. No budget change approvals are required from the regional director and the regional Title I coordinator. Fiscal approval is not required since there is no budget change involved. Now, at the bottom of the modification, there's an approval section where the director and the Title I coordinator will either mark the modification as approved or revision required. The name and date stamp will automatically populate once one of those two boxes is checked, and the reviewer clicks on the Save Modification Decision button. An email notification will be sent to the principal and designee when a modification has been approved or if a revision is requested. Now, everything I've covered so far was for modifications with no budget change. Now we'll give an overview of how to complete a modification with budget change. And you'll notice that the process is nearly identical, and you'll hear a lot of the same steps again, and that's intentional. Whether you're making a budget change or no budget change, all the steps are nearly identical. So again, start by scrolling down to the Modifications tab. Then click on Create New Modification. After clicking on Create New Modification, this time you're going to select Budget as the modification type, then Save. You'll select the purpose of the modification and the program funding code, and then click on the Create button. Now, it is important to note that only one program code can be selected per modification. So, for example, a school cannot create a modification for both program 7S046 and 7E046 on the same modification. Each program fund would have to be on a separate modification since there are different regional approvers for each program. Now, additionally, a modification must first be approved by all the reviewers and posted by the fiscal specialist before a school can submit another modification for the same program code. So for example, if I'm a school and I submit a budget modification for program 7S046, I can't submit a second modification for the same program code 7S046 until that first modification has been fully approved and the budget posted. Now, on the other hand, if I have a modification with a budget change for 7S046 that's still pending approval, but then I want to create a new modification for 7E046, that would be okay because they're two different program funds or codes. I can do two different program funds simultaneously, but I can't do the same program fund or code simultaneously. I have to wait until the first one gets approved, and then I can create the second one. Now, for a budget change modification, the next step is to state what will be defunded if applicable. If nothing is being defunded from your current budget, you can write NA. Sometimes your regional reviewers will ask you if you're defunding your pending distribution, they might ask you to put the amount from pending in that box. So you can follow the guidance from your regional reviewer when it comes to that. Now, in the box beneath that, you will indicate what findings from your needs assessment led you to adopt this strategy. And we want to remind you again, when you justify the need for whatever you're changing in your plan, whether it's your strategy or actions, or budget, or all of those things, you want to make sure that you cite data to support that justification. Now, the modification purpose that you selected will appear at the very top of the modification when you save the modification as a draft. In our example here, my purpose for this modification is that it's a new allocation, but I'm also revising my SPSA content and budget. Next, I'm going to review modifying measurable objectives. And this is a repeat of what I went over for the no budget change. So this will just be a good refresher on those same steps again. So again, if you're modifying your objectives, click on the Modify button. And once again, we'll illustrate that using implementation objectives for our example here. And as a reminder, the deadline to modify your objectives is October 31st. Next, you would select the pillar pages you want to modify your objectives in, and then click Start Editing. Type the modified objectives in the text box beneath the original objectives, and you'll see that item status column display it as modified. And your modified objectives will always display as a separate text box beneath the original objectives in each pillar. And again, if you leave those text boxes blank, you will get an error message when attempting to save or to submit your modification. If instead of modifying, you want to create new objectives, click on the Add New button and then select the pillar page and click on the Select button. Your item status this time will display new. and then you'll type the measurable objective in the text box and save the modification as a draft. And since this is a new one, you're not going to see any original objective above it because you're creating a brand new one. If you decide you no longer want to keep a new or modified objective, you can delete it by clicking on the trash can, clicking OK to verify you want to delete it. And once again, if it's an existing objective from your original SPSA that you're modifying, it will not be permanently deleted. You can always reselect it again to modify it. But if it's a brand new objective that you created, it will be permanently deleted. Next, I'll review again the process for creating a new district priority strategies and school strategy with actions. So if I want to create a new one, I'm going to click on the Add button. Then I'm going to select the pillar page and click on the Select button. To add a new district priority and strategy or remove an existing one, you would click on the Add Remove District Priority and Strategies button. Then you would select the applicable district priorities and click Apply. And in this example, we're selecting 1A and 1B. After clicking on Apply, you will get a pop-up of district strategies aligned to those priorities you selected. Select the applicable strategies and then click Start Editing. In our example here, we selected 1AS1 and 1BS1. Your modified district priorities and strategies are going to display priorities on top, district strategies beneath them. And your school strategy with action status will display new, indicating that this is a new school strategy with actions. So first, you'll type the applicable school strategy in the modified school strategy text box. Then you'll do the same thing for the school actions in the modified school actions text box. And again, remember not to leave any fields blank. Otherwise, you'll get error messages when saving or submitting. And once again, we'll remind you that these are organized in sequential numbering. So again, our original example here was that the school already had 2 ELA strategies with actions in their plan. So this one becomes number 3. The next one after that would be 4, and so on. Now, again, as a reminder, the block design encompasses your district priority, your district strategies, your school strategy, and your school actions, as well as the budget selections for position and non-position items that we're going to go over very soon. Now, these next 3 slides are only specific to comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI schools, that are completing a modification in program 7T691 or 7825T. If you are not a CSI school that received those program funds, you don't have to worry about completing this section. In fact, you won't even see this section unless you select those program funds to modify. Okay. Now, if you are a CSI school in the room, I'm speaking specifically to you, you must select a minimum of 1 category from the following: capacity building, collaboration with educational partners, root cause needs assessment analysis, evidence-based interventions, monitoring and evaluation, and reviewing and addressing resource inequities. A minimum of 1 category is required. And for the category or categories that you select, the second step is you must select a subcategory. So for example, excuse me, if I selected capacity building, I might select PD/training certificated staff. And the third required step is to list budget items in the modification that align to that category and subcategory. So the recommendation is, if you're a CSI school modifying this budget, don't select any categories unless they're aligned to a budget item that you're changing in program 7T691. If you're not making a budget change, don't select that category. Now, if a CSI school selects 1 item from the drop-down list in one of the 6 categories that I just went over, you must list the budget item that aligns. That text box becomes required. That's why I'm recommending that you not select a category unless you're going to also modify a budget item related to it. If a school chooses not to address a category, then that text box is not required. So only select categories where you're going to be editing the budget in some way. Otherwise, you can leave that category alone. Now, one of the drop-down options when you select a category is the other option. If you select other as your subcategory, then there's another text box that appears that becomes required where you have to elaborate on what that other subcategory is that you're implementing at your school. And you still must also list the budget items that align to that category. So in our example here, if I selected capacity building, and instead of PD training staff, I selected other, now I have to explain in the text box what the other is, and I also have to list those budget items that align. When you attempt to save the modification as a CSI school and you forget to complete any of these required sections, an error message will display informing the school where the error is located in that CSI section. And as we've been saying all along so far, save frequently throughout this process after each step to avoid losing your data. Now I'll go over how to modify your district priorities, district strategies, and school strategies and actions. So instead of clicking on the Add button, this time you would click on the Modify District Priority Strategy, School Strategy Action button. Select the applicable school strategy with actions you want to modify, and then click Start Editing. Since we selected Academic Excellence ELA strategy with actions 2, it will display as you see here. And then to add a new district priority and strategy or remove an existing one, you would click on that Add Remove District Priority Strategies button. Select your district priorities that align, and then click on the Apply button. And in this example, we deselected priority 1C from our original selections and selected new priorities 1B and 1D. We also reselected 1A again, and all of our selections will display in our modified district priority section. Then from the district strategies pop-up, select all your applicable district strategies and then click Start Editing. In our example here, we're selecting 1AS1, 1BS2, and 1DS2. Once you've clicked on Start Editing, your modified district priorities and district strategies will display beneath your original district priority and district strategies. Again, the way you can tell the originals apart from the modified is through that word modified. The school strategy and action status will show modified. You'll go ahead and type in your school strategy in the modified strategy text box. Then type in your school actions in the modified actions text box. And once again, don't forget to complete those sections, otherwise you will receive an error message when attempting to save or submit. The last thing I'll review is how to delete a strategy block entry. If you selected, again, either a new or modified district priority strategies and school strategy actions, but decide later you want to remove it from your modification, click on that trash can and then confirm you want to delete it. And once again, if it's an existing strategy that you're modifying, it is not permanently deleted. You can reselect it again, but if it's a brand new one, it will be permanently deleted. Okay. And now I'm going to hand it over to Claire, who will walk you through how to enter budget items on a modification that involves budget change. And she'll also walk you through the approval process for modifications with a budget change.
Thank you, Mohammed. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start with covering adding a new position. So to add a new position, you click the Add New Position button, and then you select the position that you want. And you can also start typing the budget item number, and as you type, it will narrow the selections. Now, the blue boxes can be modified. The start date and end date will default to the current school year, but you can enter the start date and the end date if they're different from the default dates. If you do know the position number, type it over the NS number, and then when you click the Save Modification as a Draft button, your total cost will update. And now I'll cover Modify Position. So to modify an existing position, we click the Modify Positions button. And then we select the checkboxes with our desired budget items that we want to modify. I want to mention here that these are listed in numeric order in ascending. So if you look at the yellow box and you see just to the right of that number with several zeros and a 5, and then down a couple rows, you see 107762. That is the budget item number. And then the next row, it would be 117361 and so forth. So if you have something, say, starting with a 4, you know it's going to be toward the bottom of your drop-down list. So once you make your selections, you click the Start Editing button, and it's located at the bottom of the page. Now, the position status selections are active, closed, and suspend. And now we're going to illustrate suspending a position for salary savings. So the first thing that we do is click on the Modify Positions button. In this example, ABC School wants to suspend the current existing position, number 304-53673. It's a community representative for 6 hours, 5 days from July 1, 2025 to June 30, 2026 to capture salary savings. So the school selects the position and then they click the Start Editing button. Now we want to note here too that your yellow highlighted lines are not selectable because you're already making a modification on that item. So now we want to note that the current position is showing us 304-53673, and its start date 7/1/2025 to 6/30/2026. They want to suspend the position from January 1 of 26 to June 30, 2026. So the school should first click on the green clone button, and it's located on the right-hand side of the UI screen, because we are going to create an exact duplicate of this existing community rep position. Now you notice that we have the yellow highlighted duplicated position beneath it, and notice that it starts with a 9. So if you get confused, you get interrupted or whatever, you want to know which one is the correct one you're going to be working on. It's always going to start with a 9, and it'll be the yellow highlighted one. So now in your yellow text box, we're going to change the position status to suspend. And then we're going to change our start date to January 1, 2026, and we're going to leave the end date as 6/30/2026. Now to see our salary savings, we have to click the Save Modification as a Draft, and then it will appear as a negative amount. So after you save it as a draft, your text box will turn to white. But if there are any errors, the salary savings is not going to display until the errors are corrected. Your completed entries will look like this illustration, and the salary savings is the $17,059. Now, if you do have an error, these SFE errors are going to display at the bottom of the screen, as we show you here. The Seek No identifies the budget item that contains the error. So it'll have a sequence number and it'll have a budget item number. So in this example, sequence number 99002 has an error. But even though there's an error, your modification has still been saved. Now, the reason for the error, it was triggered because A school selected the wrong SACS function number. The school needs to contact the principal, the SAA, or the fiscal specialist and obtain the correct SACS function number, and then correct the error before you can submit the final modification to your region approvers. And again, if there are any errors, the salary savings will not be displayed, and you may need to contact your fiscal specialist for assistance with correcting an SFE error. And again, we're showing you now the modification budget summary page. This is the budget summary that you will refer to in the CM0 period, which starts around mid-July of every year, and it's called Modification Budget Summary. So now you see our salary savings here, the $17,059, and that was our savings from the suspended community rep position. And now the school will need to reallocate those savings and purchase something else because they want to reduce that pending distribution line. The pending distribution, you might want to think of it as a wallet. That's the money that you have to spend. The green line is your allocation. So by the end of the year, the schools are encouraged to spend all of their pending distribution amounts that are shown on 40261. And now I'll cover how to close a position. So to close a position for the entire 2025-26 school year, we're going to select a position status of closed from our dropdown. And then from our start date and end date, we want to enter 7/1/2025. So both start date and end date will be the same, 7/1/2025. And now when you save your modification as a draft, the salary savings from your closed position appears again on the 40261 pending distribution line, and that amount is $56,220. And again, you need to reallocate the savings to reduce your pending distribution by the end of the year. So now to close a position for a partial year, again, we're going to enter the position status as closed, and then we're going to enter the start date and end date for the closed position in the blue boxes. So we're going to verify the close dates with your fiscal specialist. The same thing for suspending positions. You should get the actual dates from your fiscal specialist. I just want to mention that. And for the teacher assistant positions, you do need to ask your fiscal specialist to supply the TA adjustment. A school can add a new position for the remainder of the year using the same position number if so desired. And now I'll cover how to modify a position. So let's say that your school accidentally selected the wrong budget item for modification. It can be deleted. You simply click on the trash can that's located on the far right of your UI screen, and then you can reselect it by clicking on your Modify Positions button. So in other words, we never completely delete something. If you make a mistake, you delete it. You can always reselect it from your Modify Positions button, okay? And you can change the position item's position number. Recall that I said the NS number. If you knew the new position number, you could type it over that. You can also select the position status as I shown, active, suspend, or close. You can change the start date and the end date, and even the funding percentage. And now let's cover modify position start or end date. So you may have a late start position. Your schools can change the position start date and or the position end date by using the calendar icon, or you can simply type it in your start date and end date column. So in this example, ABC School's Intervention Prevention Coordinator has a late start date of October 2nd, 2025, and it's funded in Program 7S046. And we're showing you a salary savings in the amount of the $52,256. And again, we show those as a negative. Now, the total cost in our example is updated because the school saved the modification as a draft and there were no errors. And as a result, the position synced with the SFE. So when you save as a draft, you sync with the SFE and you get the actual cost of that position. And in this case, the salary savings. Now, whenever a position is funded with less than 100% of a categorical program fund, you'll see a blue informational text. And simply, it happens when you either save your modification as a draft or you actually submit your final modification. That message notifies you that the position might be funded with less than 100% of a categorical fund. And so, for example, if ABC School wanted to buy a teacher assistant position using 50% of the Title I 7S046 program and 50% of a general fund, you would see a blue informational message when you click your Save Modification as Draft or when you click the Submit Final Modification button. And it's simply a reminder that your position might be less than 100% funded and that you should check. And then we give you another example. If, on the other hand, ABC School wants to fund an intervention prevention coordinator position using 50% of Title I 7 S046 and 50% of 7T691, then a blue informational message would not appear. And this would not appear when you either saved it as a draft or submitted the final modification. And the reason is because they're both categorical programs and they total 100% funding. And therefore, you wouldn't have the need to check if there was existing funding. So again, the blue text is informational. It doesn't stop you from submitting your modification, simply a reminder. And now we'll cover modify position hours and days. Okay, so to modify a position's hours and days, you simply reselect the same budget item with the correct hours and the days from your budget item dropdown. When you save it as a draft, the total cost will update. Okay, so we have going to cover here add new non-position. So to do this, we're going to select the add new non-position button, and that's in the top of this screen that I'm showing. And then we're going to select the budget item. And again, if you know the number, you can start typing and it will narrow your selections. And then you're going to save it as a draft. So now the rate types differ in our non-position items. They can be hours, days, months, trips, year, semesters, and your total cost will update. So in this example, we have tutor teacher X time. The rate type is in hours, and all we do is if we want to get to a certain cost, let's say it's the 9018 that I'm showing here, then if it is $90.18, when you enter the 100 hours, you're going to get the $9,018. Now to modify a non-position, so we're going to click the Modify Non-Positions button and then select the checkbox for each budget item that you want to modify. And again, these are listed by the budget item number. So we see in yellow 10378 and below that 11760. And again, if your item number starts with a 4, it's going to be toward the bottom of your drop-down list. So then you are going to check the items that you wish to modify and then click the Start Editing button. So data in your blue text boxes is the data that you can change. So in this note, the sequence number that starts with a 0 means that it was entered in the SFE and it can't be deleted. However, you can change the value in your blue text boxes. So in other words, it was entered in SFE during your FN0 budget development period, and you can't delete it now. But let's say you want to change the amount, you can adjust the hours. And again, you can reduce that cost if that's what you're desiring to do. If you accidentally select the wrong budget item for modification, again, it could be deleted with the trash can as we show you in this illustration. And then you simply reselect it from the Modify Non-Position button. So again, anytime you make a mistake and you need to delete it, you can reselect from your Modify Non-Position button, just like you could with the positions. And you can change your non-position item's SACS function number. And here I'm showing you it's the 1000 value in the blue box. Let's say that you were told, oh, I need to make that 2100. You could do that because it's a blue box, right? And then you can also change your days, your hours, semesters, trips, years, and even your total cost for your lump sum items. Now I'm going to cover coffee changes and how to cancel a modification. So if a cost change occurs in the central office front end or coffee system, a message displays in your upper left corner of the page, and it will be in red. If the current modification status is in pending review, the regional approver's e-signatures will be deleted and the modification will revert to a draft status. So the school should check if there are any impacts to the cost of the budget items. So a school can cancel a modification with a status of pending review. The status changes to draft and all of your region reviewers' e-signatures will be erased. Then a modification with a status of draft can be revised and resubmitted, and the status will change to pending review. Once all of the regional reviewers have approved a modification and the modification has been submitted to your fiscal specialist, the status changes to submitted and the school cannot cancel the modification. So in other words, you can only cancel your modification if the status is pending review. Once it's submitted, you cannot cancel it. So now you can ask your fiscal specialist to reject it if you do need to reject it. In other words, you don't want it to post and you're now in submitted status. Now you request your fiscal specialist to please reject it and they'll be able to do that. And then once they post the modification in the SFE, the status changes to approved. And now I'll cover modification submission. So only the principal or assistant principal can enter the date in the box labeled Date Approved by SSC. And only the principal or assistant principal can click the checkbox besides the ed code 64001. And again, only the principal or assistant principal can click the checkbox beside the e-signature. Your designees will not be able to click these checkboxes. And the reason is because your principal and assistant principal are responsible for the monies. And so we give them the ability to control that. It is recommended to request your fiscal specialist to review before you submit the modification to the regional reviewers in case there's changes that you need to make, but we don't require it. And then after the modification's been completed, then only the principal or assistant principal can click the Submit Final Modification button to submit it to your regional approvers. The regional approvers will receive an email notification that your modification is ready for their review. And if you're not ready to submit it yet, that's fine. You go ahead and click Save Modification as a Draft, and then you can continue working on it when you have time. And then this is a picture of what the SFE looks like once you've submitted your modification. Their system automatically displays all of their regional reviewers. And after the last regional reviewer approves, an email notification is sent to the fiscal specialist and the principal, and your fiscal still goes into the SFE and approves the compliance coordinator regional approval to post. So modification requests with budget changes. And this is the approval section that I'm displaying here. Once a modification is posted in the SFE by your fiscal specialist, the status on the SPSA side changes from submitted to approved. The approval date displays underneath the name of each approver at the top of the SPSA modification dashboard page. And here we show you an example. Your local district director clicked the approved and then the local district PACE administrator clicks reviewed. Now, an email notification is sent from SFE to the principal only. A document number will display for the approved program. And we show you in our example, the document number had 4 zeros and a 4, and it shows the fund 7E046. And then SFE will email the school budget signature form to the principal. So when you're looking at your modification, you want to know if it's been approved. I'll show you later on the dashboard. We have a picture of this various statuses, and then you can actually open your modification, scroll down to the approval section, and you'll see this document number. So there's two ways to verify. Now, a fiscal specialist can reject a program's budget, as I mentioned before. This is because your status is submitted. So we've already gone past pending review. Both of the region reviewers have approved it. Now it's in the fiscal's courtyard, if you will. And you decide, oh, I want you to reject it. So in this example, the school should contact its fiscal specialist and make the required changes to the rejected budget for program 7S046, and then resubmit the modification for approval. So there's times when your fiscal is going to reject because something's wrong with your modification, and there's times when you will ask her or him to reject because you found out, oh gosh, there was another change you needed to make and didn't make it, and now we're already in submitted status, so please reject it. Now, the school cannot create another modification for the same program fund, and in this example, it was 7S046. But you can't create another 7S046 until the current modification's rejected program has been corrected and approved by your regional reviewers and posted by the fiscal specialist. So we only allow you to do one program at a time, all the way through posting by your fiscal or reject by fiscal. And again, here's the picture that I mentioned earlier that shows the various statuses. So I'll go through these one at a time. Each stage of the approval process is displayed, and if there's no budget changes, the status will not display submitted, but it will display draft, pending review, or approved, whichever one is applicable. So number one, when a modification is still in progress and it hasn't been submitted for regional approval, your status appears as draft. Number two, when your modification's been sent to the regional approvers, the status displays as pending review, and it will remain in pending review until the last regional approver approves the modification. So the trigger to go from pending review to submitted is the last region reviewer approves the modification. Number three, when a modification has been submitted to the fiscal specialist, the status displays as submitted, and now you can't cancel it anymore. So if it's out of pending review and into submitted, we can't cancel it. If we still want it to go away, then we have to contact the fiscal specialist and ask him or her to reject it. Number four, when the modification has been approved, the status will display as approved along with the dates the final regional approvers approved it. Notice that we don't show you the date that your fiscal specialist approved it because we don't get that from the SFE system. However, it will display in green. Now, the school's plan modification dashboard displays each regional reviewer's name and their date of approval, as I just explained, but you won't see it in your fiscal specialist approval because we can't get the date from SFE. But your program fund determines who your regional reviewers are. So in our example, a FACE program fund budget, that would be 7E046, was changed, so only the regional reviewer approvers that are required are your FACE administrator and the regional director. When all the required regional reviewers approved an SPSA modification, now your column, the status displays as approved along with the date of approval. And again, we reiterate here that the fiscal specialist posting date is not displayed. And now I'll cover the appendix. I'm going to go through the modification approval process flow chart, the modification resources, document upload, modification history, and how to print and save a modification PDF. So here's our current flow chart, and at the very top, the first thing that happens here is the school inputs into the SPSA. So in other words, the SPSA is a front end to the SFE budgeting system for categorical program funds. Okay, so the school inputs the data in that they want to modify, and then we're either going to modify or add new measurable objectives, district strategy, priorities, school action strategies. Then, if the modification is ready to go, we're going to go ahead and enter the SSC approval date. And again, this is your principal or your assistant principal, right? Check the certification. He or she is going to check the certification checkbox. And then we come to this budget change. And the question is, do we have a budget change? Yes or no? If we do, we follow it off to the right and we see that you're going to check the e-signature box as the principal. And then it will submit your final modification to the regional reviewers. And there's a decision box beyond that. Regional reviewers approved, yes, no, yes, they did. Submit to fiscal specialist for posting in SFE. Another decision box, did the fiscal post in SFE, yes or no? If they did, yes, we follow it to the end. If not, we go all the way back to the top. That means the school is going to input into the SPSA and follow these arrows down to the budget change decision box. Let's say we take the no route. Now we're looking at still checking e-signature box for the principal, submit final modification to region reviewer. Region reviewers approved, yes, and no, back up to the top. So that's the cycle of the process flows. Now for the SPSA modification resources, there's a link that includes job aids and FAQs. The link is located at the top of your right section of the modification details page, and it appears when your school creates a new modification or they open an existing modification. So the SPSA modification details page includes a document upload feature that's located just above your date approved by SSC and the certification section. And so if we're going to upload a document, we're going to click the choose file button. Then we're going to select the file to upload. And these are the acceptable file types: PDF, doc, docx, XLS, XLSX, and TXT. And then we're going to click the open button. And then click your upload button and you'll see the file listed in the file column. Excuse me. And you'll notice it is a URL, so you can click on that if the RFK is shown there, and you would open the doc at that point. If the wrong file was uploaded, you simply click the trash can again on the far right side and delete it, and then you go through the process again. Choose file, upload, and see your document. So to view the modification history, click your All Modifications button, which is located at the top of your modification form. Now, all of the modifications that your school created in the current year will be displayed. So basically, you can see that these are all, again, sorted by mod ID from 4570 through 4598, regardless of the program. So it's always going to be by the modification ID number for the sorting. Now to print or save your modification, click the SPSA Modifications button on the left side of your navigation menu. And then click the printer button that's located in the far right column. And it will to print a specific modification. So in this case, either of these two, you would click on your printer icon. And then your modification PDF is ready to print or save. So to print it, there's a little printer icon at the top of your screen there. Click the printer icon and that will ask you, number of pages. You have all the Windows features at that point. And then to download it, you're going to click the arrow icon and then you'll save it to a specified network drive.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank
And,
you.
and what we're going to do now, actually, before asking you to complete the training evaluation, is we're going to take about 10 minutes to do a live demo of a modification with a budget change. We know that this is a lot of information that we just shared with you, but when we do the live demo, we want you to see how easy this process actually is. And it's not going to seem that overwhelming even though this was a lot of content, the steps are actually very easy to follow and very repetitive. And you'll see that process demonstrated for you in the next 10 minutes. And then we'll come back and ask you to just complete the evaluation. And after that, we'll also open it up for any questions that we didn't answer in the chat or additional questions that you might have. So Claire is going to share her screen and walk you through a live demo right now of a budget change modification.
All right, thank you, Mohammed. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, can everyone see the screen? I'm assuming yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so I've already logged in as a particular school, and I'm going to go down my left side navigation menu here and just show you where that modifications button is. It's right here in this section. I'm going to click on it. And now I come to the modification dashboard, and I don't have any modifications displayed here. If I had created anything, you would see it here in this dashboard. So I'm going to create a new modification, and it's going to be a budget. So I'll go with the default, save it. Okay, and I'm going to choose revision of SPSA content and budget. I believe there was a question in here from Audrey Mohammed when you get a chance. She was asking if you needed to check off number 1 and number 3. So I'll let you answer that in
That
the chat.
that's fine. We'll answer the questions at the end as well. Please
Okay.
continue.
For me, I'm going to choose revision of SPSA content and budget, and then I'm going to choose program 7691, the CSI program, and I'm going to click create. And you can see now I'm in the actual modification screen where I displayed my half of the presentation. So now state what will be defended. I'm going to put test in there because this is a test. And I see that this is required. So I'm just going to put test there. And then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the mod and save it as a draft. I do expect to see this error message now. I want you to see what an error message looks like. It's in red text and it's saying, please select at least one category from the CSI modification section. So you would know right away that you would need to come to this section and make at least one selection. And since I'm covering this one step at a time, we will get to this section in my live demo here, but for now, I'm going to walk you through just uh, how easy it is, to walk through. So I'm going to start with modify measurable implementation object. And I'm going to select the graduation, college, and career pillar. So I check that box and click start editing. And notice that right away it says modified, so I know it's modified. If I had clicked new, it would say new here. So if you get interrupted, these are little helpers to keep you track of where you're at. I see also here it's required, so I should be putting some entry here. Again, I'll put test. And again, I expect to see this CSI error because I have not selected anything in this section. So when I save doc, I expect to see this error again. See, it shows up again. All right, now I'm going to add a new measurable improvement. So here's an add new, and I'm going to enter the English Language Arts ELA. And I'm going to make that selection and see, here's the new. So I see also this is required. So I better type some text in here. Again, I'm doing a test, so pretty easy for me. And again, we're still going to see this error because I haven't addressed it yet. But notice that my modification is still saving. So even though you have an error message, it's still saving all the information I've already entered, which is really nice because you deal with a lot of interruptions. I mean, I know I do. All right. Now we're going to go down to our district priority and strategies. I am going to modify the ELA school strategies with action 1. So I'm going to click on this button and I'm going to scroll down. This says academic excellent graduation. Nope. I want ELA. And there it is. And that's actions number 1. So I'm going to check that box and start editing. Okay. And it's showing me that I selected district priority 1D and then strategies 1DS4 and 1DS7. So now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just reselect those same ones to show you that you could do that. Here's 1D, and I'm going to click the apply button. And notice how it brought up the pop-up that Mohammed described. Now I'm going to be selecting 1DS4 and 1DS7, and then select or start editing, excuse me. Okay, so I've reselected them, and there they are in white. Notice how originally they were gray, but now my reselections are in white. So you can keep track again of where you're at. I'm going to go down here now, and because I didn't fill in anything here, I expect it to trip an error message. So we're going to go down and save it as a draft. So I have a new error message. Please complete all required fields. So, okay, what's that? I'm going to scroll back up. Oh, look, I didn't put any text in these required fields. So now I'm going to put test again. Now, when I go down and save again, they should turn white. And this second error message, I expect it to go away. Oh gosh, it worked. And look, it's white. So I'm good. All right. Now I'm going to be adding another, let's see, I'm going to modify a position here, a non-position, excuse me. So I'm still in this ELA school strategy with actions 1, right? I reselected my district priority strategies, and then I even put in my school strategy and school actions and my modified. So now I'm going to go down to non-positions. And I want to modify my SIM. So my SIM, again, these are ordered right by the item number. So this is a 40269. That's the one I want. I'm going to start editing. And now I'm going to reduce this $29,894 by $5,000. So I'm going to make it $24,894. And then I'm going to save as a draft. You'll notice I do a lot of save as draft. That's because I don't want to lose my data. Sometimes you could have a network interruption, right? And you guys, you want to make sure that you save your data is all I'm saying. It's very important. So here's the entry, and you see that I have a negative 5,000 there. That's my savings. All right, now I'm going to be adding a new position, or I'm sorry, non-position. This time I want to put it in general supplies technology. So I know the number is 40127. See how I start typing and how now it limits? So I can just click on it now. There it is. And now I can put my 5,000 savings here as a total cost. And then I'm going to save as a draft. Okay, so now I have a wash here. I saved 5,000 and I spent 5,000. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding another district priority and strategy here. And I'm going to add this one in math. And I expect to see number 2 here. So when I scroll down, there it is, mathematics number 2. Now I'm going to be adding a district priority D again. And this time I'm going to be adding 1DS1. And I'm going to start editing. Okay. So now I'm going to save it as a draft. And again, notice how I didn't complete these boxes, right? Now see, please complete all required fields. So it means I didn't do something up here. What didn't I do? I didn't complete these boxes. So we help you keep track, of what you forgot to do or got busy, didn't do. This is a smart application. So we're going to save as a draft, and I expect this error to go away. And it did. Okay. But remember, I still haven't done anything in this CSI section. So that error is still there. Okay, so I created this mathematics school strategy with actions 2. I selected, it was brand new, so I put in 1D, 1DS1. And then I forgot to add these, so they turned orange, and I put text there and I resaved. So we're good to go. Now, what I want to do here is I'm going to close a position, show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on my modify positions. And the position I wish to close is the 20790, the MS interventionist for 3 hours, 5 days. And I'm going to click on the box that's associated with that position, and then I'm going to start editing. Okay. So now, because we want to close it for the entire year, here's my drop down of the position status. I'm going to select closed. And since it's for the entire year, I'm just going to type in the same end date as I have in the start date. Those two are the same. And now I'm going to save it as a draft. And now I will scroll back up and show you what that looks like. See how I have the credit amount there now, that minus 98,796? That's my salary savings from closing this position for the entire year. Okay, and now I'm going to purchase a CAP program ad. So add new position. And I know this one is 117,360, but I'm going to start typing to show you how you narrow those positions. Here we go with the 3 hours, 5 days. That's the one I want to do. And notice how I have an NS position number. If you knew that position number, you could type it in over this, but I'm not going to in this exercise. I just want to keep the temporary one because supposing we haven't filled it yet, or we don't know who the person is that should fill it. And then I'm going to save as a draft. Okay. Now, I happen to know that because this is a half-time CAP program add position, that I need to have a differential for it. So I'm going to be adding a new non-position. And again, I'm going to start typing the number because I know some of these by heart. Here it is, 116.81. And I want 1 semester. So it's going to run me $780. And I'm going to save it as a draft. Okay. And again, I still see this CSI error because again, we didn't address that section yet. All right, now I'm going to show you how to back out the benefits for the Cat 1 half-time position because we don't want to pay for the full benefits when we only have a half-time position. So I'm going to be adding a new non-position, and I'm going to put this into 30165. And I'm going to enter it as a negative. It's going to be negative 9350. Now I happen to see that SAC's function is here, but it's not filled in. And I don't want to trigger an error message because I'm in a hurry. I got other things to do, right? So if I happen to know it, I know it's 2100. I go down and I save it as a draft. Okay. So you see now that it's got the negative here, and I'm going to add another new non-position because I have more benefits to back out. I have the 30166, the retire benefits cert. And again, I'm going to put in the SACS function. It's a negative $2,700. And I'm going to save it as a draft. And then I have one more benefit to back out with this entry. So we add new non-position again, and this time 30170. And this one is also a 2100. And we're backing out $1,000 here. And I'm going to save this as a draft. Okay, now we're finally ready for this CSI section. Okay, for this one, I'm just going to select one category, capacity building, and I'm going to put in the PD training certificated. Okay, so it's telling me I better hurry up, right? I have 5 minutes left in my session. I was going slowly though, because I didn't want you to miss anything, okay? All right, so I am going to select PD certificated staff. Now, this is required, but I'm going to leave it blank to show you how this orange thing gets triggered anytime I miss a required field. Okay, so he says, please select at least one category from the CSI modification section. So here we go again. Okay. Okay, I think what's happening is my session is ending, so I can take you through how to cancel. But I would need to close this and open it again. If you guys want to hang in, I can show you how to submit it. So I'm going to log in again and refresh. When you see that 5-minute session going to expire, that really means you need to refresh your browser. So I'm going in, notice that I created mod ID 4714, and here's my program, 72691, and today's date that I created it. And I happen to log in as their principal. So here I am back in my modification, and I'm going to reselect this CSI piece again. I don't want to fill anything there. Okay, see? So now I'm going to type test in there. And I'm going to click save as a draft. And you'll see that I took care of that. Now I'm going to pretend like you're ready to submit it to your approvers. So I'm logged into the principal. I could put any date here. I'm going to put yesterday's date. I'm going to certify ed code 64001 and the e-signature. All right. I'm going to save it one more time, make sure there's no errors. And now I'm going to submit it. Okay, see how I get a green message? It was submitted successfully and that your budget items validated successfully. And now look, I no longer have control over it because I sent it over to the region people. But now I'm not going to go ahead and approve as them because we didn't want to go that far, but I do want to show you how to cancel it. Remember how I said once it was in pending review, you couldn't have control over it anymore because see, I can't make any changes anymore, but you can still cancel. So let me show you how to do that. We're going to go back up to the top of our modification and this green box, list all modification. Click on that and see how I have my mod ID here, 4714 and my program. These two little purple arrows, this is how you cancel. Notice I'm in pending review here now. Once I click on those, it's going to go to draft. See? And now I can go back into it and I can make whatever changes I want to make. Again, I have control. So now you've seen the process. We went through how to close a position, how to add a new position, how to add a non-position, how to reduce our funding in supplemental instructional materials. The last thing I would like to show you is I'm going to save it one more time, pretending that we had more changes we wanted to do. And I see this successfully saved. Now I want to look at my modification budget summary because I want to see what effect this modification had on my purse, if you will. I'm looking at this fund, 72691, and I see my backed out benefits. I also see my reduced supplemental instructional I took 5,000 out of there and I put it here in general supplies technology. So and here's my differential for the CAP program, and here's the CAP program position. So you have an immediate effect on your modification budget summary when you do a modification. Even though it's in draft status, it still has all the monetary changes. It wouldn't be until you deleted that modification that you would return these to their original amounts. So you have a live time now in your monetary situation. You can see here now I've got 17,861 in my PD line that I can repurpose and buy whatever I want to now with that money.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you so much, Claire. And I'm going to go ahead and stop